What is your outlook on what the Trump administration has done in healthcare so far? What kind of grade would you give?
RFK, I don't know if there's a grade low enough. F minus minus.
We're at a crazy moment in health. We've got AI disrupting traditional medicine. Doctors don't want to rely on ChatGPT, but they're happy to rely on open evidence. RFK and the Trump administration with their Maha, Make America Healthy Again movement is transforming American health for good and bad.
I'm going to let him go wild on health.
And then you've certainly seen people like Brian Johnson and other billionaires who are interested in figuring out how they can try to live forever.
You will die. False.
We brought together some of the most serious people in Silicon Valley and the startup world who are thinking about all those changes in health at Newcomer's brand new event, Deus Ex Medicina. I hosted the event with Nayeema Raza, and she's here to join me to talk about some of the major themes. We'll play some of the highlights for you and give our reactions and help you make sense of the crazy stuff in health that's going on in Silicon Valley right now.
This podcast is supported by Google. Hey folks, Stephen Johnson here, co-founder of Notebook LM. As an author, I've always been obsessed with how software could help organize ideas and make connections. So we built Notebook LM as an AI-first tool for anyone trying to make sense of complex information. Upload your documents, and Notebook LM instantly becomes your personal expert, uncovering insights and helping you brainstorm. Try it at notebooklm.google.com.
Nayeema, you're not wearing your hat.
Oh my God, I have another hat. You know, I'm in Aspen, so I have like
You're
a
already
fancy
moving on to the
Aspen
next
hat.
thing. You're like, we just wrapped up Deus Ex Medicina. You're like, oh, I've got a new hat, new things on my mind.
I
I'm here,
love
of
the
course.
hats.
You know, we're always going, hey, I'm wearing the hat, you're not. That's sort of like the dynamic overall. I think you're a little too
Look at this
fashionable
hair. You want to
wearing
cover this
baseball
up?
hats all the time. Exactly. Anyway, we have wrapped up Deus Ex Medicina, our inaugural AI Health and Longevity Summit that we hosted together. Obviously, you are the wonderful host of the Smart Girl, Dumb Questions. I got my plurals and singulars, right? Smart Girl, Dumb Questions host. And yeah, thrilled to be here with you. What was your reaction to the event? What surprised you the most?
What surprised me the most? You know, I thought one of the things that was electric in the room every time it came up was the Trump administration's policies surrounding healthcare. And what I thought was interesting was the low grades.
What did you call it? Like a brick or?
Electric. I said it was electric.
Electric.
In the room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was electric in the room because I think people were just like really curious to know what other people thought about it. It was kind of like everybody had a thought about it, but everyone wants to know what someone else thinks before they talk about what they think.
Exactly. Well, I sort of, in our predictions episode, I said, I don't know if people are going to want to talk about it. I think, yeah.
Yeah. But I think people loved talking about it and loved hearing what people said about it. So there was a real, I would say, split, not within the room, but within many of the people that we heard from on stage. People would split their opinion between what they thought of vaccine policy, no good, very bad, as Vinod Khosla put it, F minus minus for RFK. Pretty much across the board, people voiced concern about it. But then a lot of optimism around, you know, the kind of kill the clipboard campaign that you're seeing out of CMS and Medicare, Medicaid. A lot of hope for the administration's willingness to work with the private sector on revolutionizing some of the technology and processes around healthcare in America. And I kind of left thinking, okay, is this self-interested? Is this what companies say because like they need to be doing business with government here? But I really felt it was sincere. You had people on stage like Tom Hale, CEO of Aura, saying, look, I'm not a Republican, but showing some bullishness around what the Trump administration has done or could do in policy.
Yeah, policy obviously loomed large. I mean, the government and Trump are affecting everything, like TikTok is going private. But health, obviously, more than anything, a highly regulated industry. Silicon Valley cares a lot about health. Vinod giving them an F minus was obviously like a moment. But I don't know. I'm more on the view that everybody plays their role. And if I'm the CEO, it's like, got to go for whatever win with the government I can get. And so you have to leave some room for like, what? It's like you're parenting a small child, you know, as I'm preparing to do. You hope for, you teach them, you're aspirational, like, your intentions are so good. You're trying to do this thing. You're trying to privatize the thing we all want. Whenever I hear them say they're really going to let businesses run, it's sort of like, leave us alone, let us do our thing. But then when you actually push them on what about the FDA? It's either what about the FDA, like it's bad, or I haven't read or looked at anything on it. It's like, I don't know, anything specific. They're like pretending they sort of like have no clue what's going on.
Well, I feel like one, I really like your metaphor in which Donald Trump is a baby in diapers and Tom Hale's like the big daddy being like, you're doing great. You keep crawling up here.
Right.
But that's not, but see, I think that if that were the case, they would be wary because I think we taped right before Trump had even or maybe it was just around Trump kind of distancing himself from RFK's vaccine policy, but saying that the White House still stands behind him completely, whatever that means. But, it was in the specifics for me. Like when we had the conversation with Strand Therapeutics, Jake Beckraft, and Janice Chen from Mammoth Biosciences, and Janice told the story of how this administration, which so hates mRNA vaccine technology, two things that came out of that conversation. One, Jacob Beckraft clarified that what the administration had done in terms of cutting $500 million in mRNA funding, which was widely reported as such, was really around the vaccine funding. There continues to be a lot of investment dollars when it comes to cancer research, cancer-specific vaccines, et cetera. It was in the other world of vaccines, flus, et cetera, that they had cut this research, the respiratory stuff. But then Janice made the funny point that, RFK hates mRNA, loves CRISPR, which relies on mRNA technologies.
Right.
And so there is clearly a disconnect.
Hopefully he doesn't learn the science anymore. Like if he figures it out, it might hurt
more
more things. Better
too.
than he just like stay out informed on this connection.
Yeah. So I guess I'm less skeptical of their bullishness about policy and more by it. But I'm curious what surprised you, Eric?
Yeah. I mean, the business person in me, the sort of student of the Silicon Valley startups, I'm very interested in the rivalry between Abridge and Open Evidence. It's not a rivalry yet, but these are two companies that are core to how do we bring foundation models to doctors. Abridge, we're going to sell to health systems. Your doctor talking to your note taker app. We're going to help you make sense of that. And then, very importantly, we're going to help you tell your insurance company why they owe you a lot of money and owe your patients, a lot of coverage. And basically, we're going to sort of be your tool in the fight with insurance companies and making sense of those messy doctor notes. Yeah. On the other hand, you have Open Evidence, which is like, no, we're going to help doctors actually diagnose patients, figure out what's going on. And, it helps the patients probably don't want to hear that their doctor is going to ChatGPT to figure out what to do. So no, we're going to Open Evidence, the doctor official trained on medical journals tech. And they're like basically having doctors just choose to use their free product and then, getting pharmaceutical ads, the good old fashioned business model. Yeah, anyway, so I thought there were two super interesting companies that eventually are going to compete with each other. But
do you have a prediction on who's going to win, Eric? Or are you now going to be, like, I think everyone's doing a good job. Keep crawling, babies.
Interesting. Who do I think is going to win? I haven't actually, without the numbers, it's always hard to tell. It's a great Silicon Valley tech question because it's like, Abridge is sticky. They're selling to health systems. And so the real threat, of course, is OpenAI coming for them both. So I do think Abridge is building deals that might be hard for OpenAI to dislodge. I think Open Evidence is providing free advice, something that ChatGPT does really well. So I think Open Evidence faces more threat from OpenAI, but people love a Silicon Valley business that's so good. Everybody just wants to use it. It grows because people tell each other about it. So I guess I'm betting a little bit on Abridge if I had to pick. But they're both great companies. And
I thought that was a good moment in your interview with the Abridge founder where she was like, we're basically going to compete with them. We're going to go in that game with Open Evidence. Yeah. I also like the moment in my conversation with the Hippocratic CEO, Manjal, as well as Daniel Kahn from Slingshot AI. And they had kind of back and forth about whether or not there'll be one foundational model that eats the rest or not. And Daniel kind of came to, Manjal was saying, someone unnamed, aka Sam, is pushing this idea.
Sam Altman, OpenAI.
Sam Altman of OpenAI is pushing one idea of one big model, and he thinks it's going to be many. And Daniel was saying, actually, Sam doesn't necessarily believe that is going to be the case. But that is, the back end of all this, where is this all going to be powered, and who's going to own the models, and who own the models own the system, or who attracts the doctors owns the system.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And I mean, and drug discovery was very important, but I think that'll come up in the clip. So I'll hold
Yes.
my drug discovery
Great.
takes for that.
All right, let's play our first clip. And it's, I think, me in conversation with Jonathan Swerdlin, who's the CEO of Function.
Do you see trends that are geographically distributed?
When you see the data, it upsets your stomach a little bit because we see how many people are suffering needlessly with things that are actually really solvable, that don't even require medical intervention, but are things you solve in your life. The level of cardiometabolic disease in this country, even amongst people you would consider healthy, is so high. And the result of that is like in 20, 30 years, if they're in their 30s or 40s, like there's a likelihood they're going to have a heart attack and they might leave their families behind.
Yeah.
And these things are, I know what happens when you pull the thread on some of these issues. It's a little nauseating to see that at such a scale. And then it's also at the same time encouraging because we flip the lights on. Like people are in the dark.
Wow, you guys just really chose the least spicy moment of that whole interview.
Because I thought it was a very Silicon Valley moment. I wanted to start there just because he really hit that chord you expect from Silicon Valley. It's just, we want to save the world. I'm a true believer. You gave him a hard time, and it was definitely amusing. And people go, we're posting the full clips on YouTube, so you can go listen to it and watch Nayeema sort of rough him up a little bit. But I did think, what did you think of the sincerity of his sort of, there's so many people that need our help, and you can explain the business a little bit to people.
What sincerity? Do you see what I did there? No, I know. I think that, look, he has to say that. I was curious what they're doing. Like my big question was, what are you doing with all this data, right? Because Function Health is one of the fastest growing companies. They've had, I think it's 450% year-on-year growth. Like if you're on any social media platform, you have seen the ads. It's $500. Get all of these blood panels that you'll never have from your doctor. Earlier in the day, Annie Lamont, investor at Oak HCFT, had made the point that 90% of what you see in some of these blood panels, et cetera, are actually covered by insurance. And so there's some marketing.
Sure, rich people will pay for Functions branded. We're going to help you figure everything out, tests. But as it reaches mass market, those people are just going to go to health insurance companies if this is possible. That's basically the trade-off with Function.
And Jonathan brought up like the geographical distribution of their company. So I'm like, great, what does that data look like? Are people healthier in parts of the country or not? And I got this kind of soft answer back. So what do I think of the sincerity of that? Look, I don't think you get into the healthcare business because you're trying to kill people.
Yeah.
Am I struggling to stay on topic? Or
No. You're right. I'm saying you're struggling with sincerity itself. I think.
I no, because I think actually, like I believe that most people get into their fields because they care about the thing.
Yeah.
So yes, I do believe that Jonathan is someone who cares about the health of Americans. I think Mark Hyman is someone who cares about that. They might have different perspectives on you about that, but they have their own stories that brought them to it.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting about the business is you are providing services that are then executed on by Quest Labs, and now with their recent acquisition of Ezra, MRI scans that are done by third-party vendors. What you have value in is the data, and are you going to move into the actual labs business? And Jonathan didn't say no. He said not today, which to me as a journalist is, okay, tomorrow. Choose whatever length of time. Why do you choose
The
that?
medical system is built to treat sick people. And like, the longevity insight, and I think there are a couple, but a key one is, the medical system should be doing more for healthy people and say, you're healthy. Doctors would say, don't get a bunch of tests and scare yourself. Like, just you're healthy, be healthy. Don't worry about it. Like, do these, eat healthy, exercise, and like, leave us alone. And I think like companies like Function where they're like, no, get a scan. Like, things could be wrong or you could be better. Like, I just think businesses coming at something with a different mentality and saying we believe in medicine, but we should like look at these things differently. I think there's opportunity there just to like take a new lens to something where there's so much consensus in how medicine has thought about something. So I think they have opportunity in just that they clearly have a fresh lens for how most of medical testing is getting done.
Yeah, and also, that is a shift that I think is here to stay. Call it longevity, call it whatever, but preventative health and people's own kind of N of one healthcare, like treating yourself as your own baseline of what good health looks like and not shifting all those costs onto the system or onto the back end. Now, I think what's important is like, can everyday clinicians compete and will they upgrade and start providing a lot of these indicators and tests? And as Annie said, many of them would cover it, but you would have to ask, your insurer would have to agree, et cetera. And that bureaucratic process is really hard. So it's easier to, swipe and get blood done at home.
I think we have a clip on GLP-1s. Maybe we go to that because I think that fits
Great.
directly with this longevity conversation we're having
Probably.
here.
And this will probably be our conversation with Noom CEO Seju Zhang and
Yeah, all
Loyal
yours are the best, I
co-founder
guess. You know, we're
Celine.
doing all Nayeema clips.
No, I'm just introducing the clips.
No, it's
before
good.
we play them. They're not the best.
I can
Yes.
make fun of myself.
Yes.
Do you think pharmaceutical companies are going to double down on GLP-1s and other kind of preventative care over the R&D that they're doing for cancer treatments? Or
There's definitely a lot of rumors that they're going to get into explicit aging and longevity, and like have an aging division, which would be the sickest thing ever. And I hope it happens. Like an aging drug or a longevity drug sounds so radical, but it's just a preventative medicine for multiple diseases, right? Ozempic is preventative medicine for the downstream negative consequences of obesity. Statins are preventative medicine for certain forms of age-related cardiovascular disease. That's all a longevity drug is too. And oh, by the way, statins are the most successful drug class in history.
yeah.
GLP-1s are probably going to beat them, right? And so the minute people see that, and I'm sure people there already do, they're incredibly smart. Yeah, I think it's going to happen.
So this is Celine, who's the founder of Loyal, which is, you might think she's doing life extension for humans, but in fact, she's doing life extension for dogs, which is such an interesting play, but came up in human sciences. What do you think of her prediction, Eric?
What I love about Celine is that, like, she's sort of doing this, like, Tesla strategy, right? You start with, like, the Roadster, and then you're like, from there, we'll save the planet. Elon might have gotten lost on his save the planet with clean energy, but Celine, it's like, okay, if we can figure out how to save your dog, which is a lower regulatory burden than everybody else, then we'll be able to do it with humans and do much more. And so she's a true believer in, like, longevity. How can we make healthy people live higher quality lives? And I think she's right that, like, pharmaceutical companies are going to wake up and say, oh, there's clearly money in it. Silicon Valley's investing in it. GLP-1s made $1 billion. And we should take this more seriously.
Yeah. To quote the great artiste Cuba Gooding Jr., it's like, show me the money. This is the money. This GLP-1s have fundamentally shifted how we think about people's willingness to pay for healthcare. This is an industry that you would rather pay for. Like, you don't think twice about buying a new pair of sneakers. But when it comes to something for your health, that might cost a fraction of that. You're like, no, because it should be covered by my insurance. I already paid for my insurance and the insurance should cover it. So there's this whole psychological wrap up. And what we're seeing with GLP-1s is what we've seen with, say, Botox, where people are willing to pay for a medical product out of pocket all of a sudden. And no doubt pharmaceuticals want to get in that space. And they also, I think she and Seju from Noom made this point, will want to increasingly go direct. Like, Celine has chosen to own distribution end to end, from doing clinical trials and putting shots in paws, I guess is the analogy in this case. And
I think a subtle thing people learned with GLP-1s is, like, the story of the drug matters so much. You know, it's like it had been around, you know, it's helped people with diabetes. And obviously, you know, you need it to be sort of primarily useful for obesity, which, you know, allowed for this blow up.
Yeah, it's still heavily regulated. You still need a BMI of 25 to qualify for Ozempic. I think Noom has introduced this microdosing GLP-1s, which I'm very interested in. I think this will move over time. As someone who's not at that BMI, I would like to. I mean, I've thought about, should I be microdosing GLP-1s? Because all of a sudden, if it's anti-inflammatory and really has longevity benefits, which are still being borne out and being tested and studied, but if that is the case, then why would we reserve it only for a portion of the population? Right. All right, let's play the next clip. And this is you, Eric, talking to Dr. Unpack, who's the head of digital health at Samsung.
40% people in the U.S. do not know they have sleep apnea. There was a study that showed when you reach 60, 1% decrement per year in deep stage sleep increased your dementia risk by 27%. And so our users use our wearables a lot for tracking their sleep. One of the top reasons for sleep issue has to do with sleep apnea. So we have a software as a medical device will screen for you and say, we think you have sleep apnea. 40% people in the U.S. do not know they have sleep apnea. So the watch actually uses PPG signals, and we validated this in a sleep lab. And we got FDA clear based on the standard we met. And essentially, we're able to screen to a very good, accurate degree as to whether you have sleep apnea.
I have to say, after that moment, I was like, I think I have sleep apnea. It's just most people's reaction to that moment. What did you think about that?
I have two very contradictory takes. I guess the this the one that sort of fits with what I've been saying is just, it's good. Help people sort of, you're already wearing these devices, like get the data, figure out what's wrong with you, like find some improvement. There is another part of me that's like, man, it's what capitalism does best. It's like, you don't realize you have a problem. Let us sort of plant the seed that you have a problem that we can then sort of sell you a solution to. And I do think that's where the medical establishment gets wary. It's like some of these things are only really problems if you feel like you're suffering. And if they suggest to you, you might be now all of a sudden, you might have a need that you didn't have before. So I think it just depends on the seriousness of an issue. I mean, I do think sleep apnea is a real thing, but you can see how taken to an extreme, suggesting people should be worried about this new thing or that could be stressful for people.
Yeah. Sleep apnea is a very interesting use case for it because it's the kind of thing that you might not know you have it. And especially if like
you're asleep.
You think that, like you're asleep. And if you're not in a relationship, right? And like if you're in a relationship, you might know someone might say to you, hey, you're snoring, or hey, you seem to stop breathing in the middle of the night. But if it's just you having bad sleep, you have no idea what that is. And a third kind of thing that it triggers in me is these basic elements of health, which is like health, it's like, are you hydrating? Are you eating good food? Are you moving your body? Are you having good communal relationships? Are you sleeping well? Kind of. Those are your 5 real indicators of health or like drivers of health, most people would say. And so, but this is one where, I think it's interesting the way they've been able to work with the FDA to get that use case out there. And certainly will be a way that we see a lot of these devices start to compete with each other is, I think, in their ability to diagnose / prescribe, or at least get proximate to that, give you readouts that are doctor friendly, and or talk to you. Like Tom Hill, I was like, when is your ring going to talk to you? And he's like, oh yeah, we've been talking to Manjal, the CEO of Hippocratic, about that for years. Like, could your ring just call you?
I mean, to get like philosophical for a second, I feel like there's a funny realization with health where you're like, oh, I'm in charge of it. You go to your doctor, but then at some point, like your doctors like barely see you. They're like oblivious. And you realize like, oh, it's just me. Like no one is really, your doctors definitely know less than you. They have more expertise, but they're not dialed in, and it's not that high stakes. Like if you have an issue, you sort of need to conclude you have an issue or not. And this is like a very like, I don't know, you're alone in the universe sort of revelation that I think people have at some point. And it's funny with technology that I do think there is this real potential that it's like, oh, we emit all this data and AI is getting very smart, and like someday soon there will be another force sort of like watching out for you and saying, I'm worried you have this thing. And like, will that change for good and bad, the sense that there's a protective sort of layer around us that we pre that force didn't have?
Yeah, and the data around it is really interesting because all of a sudden you have that data, and then it becomes, is it what signal, what's noise in that data? And that's where you're really dependent on the device and the authorizations for people telling you. But like, one of the greatest innovations of the Oura Ring in the last X years has been their ability to tell you where you are in your cycle, and people are using that for sexual health, for fertility tracking, for trying to get pregnant. And you're taking something that was a really terrible experience of like, you spend your 20s trying not to get pregnant, then you spend your 30s trying to get pregnant and peeing on sticks and doing all kinds of things. And Aura's making that, I think the studies show that it's much more accurate than time syncing. It's probably, I don't know if it's as accurate as peeing on a stick, but.
I mean, part of what you're getting at, I think, is this like, it's a tool to inform you. It's like, it's your data, it's giving you advice, but you still feel like the actor. It's not this sort of like other, which is like, hey, like I've made this unilateral decision for you. It's like, it ultimately reinforces the sense you're in control because you're getting information that allows you to be this sort of more informed decision maker.
Though health is, one of these industries that you still have to rely on potentially going through someone else, or at least seeking the advice of someone else, because data is a bunch of numbers. And that's where I think the usability, like a lot of what will drive the competitiveness or not of these companies is how usable and glanceable. Glanceability is a metric that Apple, for example, looks a lot at. So when they create these PDF readouts, I know one of the things that they look at is how quickly can a doctor digest that information. Because a problem in the clinical setting that you're having is people are coming in with all this information and saying to their doctors, but I have this massive MRI report, and they're saying, why are you doing this? Like, you're in your 30s, you seem super healthy. Why are you having a full body MRI scan? Doctors talk a lot about the cost on the medical system from people having too much data, and wealthy people in particular coming in with more data, taking more time. That's taking away time for them to see other patients. So the health system has to think about how to absorb or compete with what we're seeing here. One question I have for you is, we had talked about whether or not there'll be one bundle for healthcare or not, or if there'll be, you know, like what the future of healthcare looks like. Will it be like streaming where you have all these different bundles competing with each other, or will these stay disaggregated companies? Did you have a prediction or more of a thought on that coming out of?
No, it's beyond me. It's just so hard with the insurance layer. Like, your vision is like sort of a Netflix type subscription where it's like you have insurance and then you have your like additional I'm willing to pay, and the way you get people to do that is you sort of offer them a bunch of stuff and they keep.
Well, I'm just saying that vertical integration, like Function Health buying Ezra, like all of a sudden it's like, oh, are you part of the, you know, I'm making this up obviously, but are you part of the Prenuvo or a Noom bundle, or are you part of the Function Health, Whoop, whatever bundle?
It makes, I mean, I use One Medical, like it's you know, a relatively small fee, but certainly I would be happy to pay much more if it was like, okay, here's, do all these things, you know, lead you to it, tied in with, we're going to try and get insurance to cover everything we can. But we've sort of thought through what the supplemental stuff is that you should pay for.
Yeah, I imagine in the future we're going to be paying for, like, there'll still be insurance, which will largely be employment driven. And then you'll have a set of subscriptions that you pay, but instead of paying 10 different providers, you're going to pay one bundle price. That's going to be a discount on like 4 things that you're getting.
Here's a question to Shiv Rao, the CEO of Abridge, the company that I talked about that was selling to medical systems, giving doctors transcription services.
My mother is so worried about AI is going to deny all my claims, and the insurance companies are going to just be so empowered to like find every way to weasel out delivering care, and that could get extended to Medicare Advantage. How worried are you about insurance companies weaponizing this technology?
My sense so far is that there's a ton of opportunity for us to figure out the right way forward.
Yeah.
And when you think about risk adjustment, it's so difficult for a clinician to capture the whole story, and this technology can do that.
Right.
And that's a win-win for everyone involved. I used to be on a clinical documentation improvement team at a health system at UPMC in Pennsylvania, and we used to do these lunch and learns. We would go from department to department and do pizza and PowerPoints and try to teach doctors about risk adjustment, about what they call MEET criteria, about documenting what you discuss, monitoring, evaluating, assessing, or treating against any given problem.
Right.
We try to teach them about utilization management and inpatient versus ob status, or E&M criteria, or medical decision making. Did you document it completely? All of this stuff in 1 year, out the other. Every single clinician in those sessions had 1,000 yard stare and just wanted to get back to clinic, see their patients, and then get home and see their families. And so what happens when you can take these models to risk adjustment school, to revenue cycle school? What happens when you take them to prior authorization school? What happens when they're behind the scenes reasoning through? And what happens when they go to medical school and they can help the clinician feel like a superhero in front of their patient? And so that's sort of the high level journey that we're on.
Pizza and PowerPoint, I think very different things happen in all of those settings. I mean, I imagine insurers are going to use that AI to deny, and clinicians to diagnose. But what do you think?
I mean, Shiv is on the side of doctors. They're going to work with insurance companies some, but I think doctors are their customers, so they are trying to help doctors get more out of insurance companies. So he's sort of the feel-good story. I don't think the insurance companies have any incentive to shout about how they use AI, and so we'll hear less about it, but certainly it's going to be going on. But I take Shiv's point that like insurance companies, their job is to figure out like, oh, you didn't do the right thing. Like, we're not going to pay for that. That's not how it's supposed to go. And so doctors, get into the business of being a doctor business. They want to help people, not because they want to file claims. And so perhaps they have more room to benefit from having this tool than insurance companies do. But I definitely think an arms race is very possible. And that's in a lot of domains, the most dystopian case for AI, which is, I mean, sort of like the law in America. You have your expensive lawyer, I get my expensive lawyer, and we fight it out. Like, you get your great AI, I get my great AI, and we fight it out. Then it's like, are we any better with all that spending.
Yeah, it'll be a three-way arms race because, like my big excitement when chatbots became mainstream in 2023 is like I dreamed of a chatbot to fight the United Airlines chatbot. I will just put this thing to work so it's not my time. It's like, you deal with my agent. And I think over time it will be that. It'll be the doctors, it'll be the agentic doctor and the agentic insurer and the agentic patient fighting it out about what's going to be the right solution. So there is that arms race reality is something that I think we're driving towards. And speaking of this great arms race, it's probably a good time to play the conversation that we were talking about earlier between Manjal Shah of Hippocratic AI and Daniel Kahn from Slingshot AI about whether it'll be one foundational model that's going to really power all of the healthcare companies in the world, or if it's going to be competing models out there.
Certain people who will remain unnamed have been running around the world saying, one ring will rule them all.
Yeah.
And it's just not true. We have tried it. We have tried with only one model that we trained ourselves on 6 million calls of nurses talking to patients. And you can't get there because these models, even when they have a 1 million token context window, they can't pay attention to all of it. And so you have to multiply attention span by multiplying models.
It could be that closed source or open source models dominate. It's extremely hard to predict.
Yeah.
But wherever the world goes, it is entirely possible that it's fine-tuning. It could be a whole new paradigm of fine-tuning that emerges. Who knows? We might be building on top of foundation models. We might be building separate models. I think personally, I just think it's kind of pointless to predict. I think machine learning engineers on the ground, we don't really care.
So that's such an interesting take because now Daniel Kahn, who's arguing that it doesn't really matter, is actually from Slingshot AI, which has built its own foundational model for behavioral health. It's a mental health provision company that's really probably really competing with ChatGPT, and one of their prime businesses right now, what they wanted necessarily, but it is a big use case, therapy, versus the Hippocratic AI model is really 20 plus individual models. I think they're largely based on another outside foundational model, but it's 26 models because they need one mean one and 20 plus nice ones to deal with the patient. So the patient is getting all the information they need, but when the patient isn't behaving, the patient isn't complying, taking their medicine, doing their walk, doing their PT, the mean model can come in and say, hey, you really got to be doing that in the world of kind of agentic voice nurses / medical assistants that they're in right now. So they're just taking points of view that I thought was, that's kind of interesting given what your company is actually doing. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like I spend my life debating this question. Cerebral Valley, our AI summit, it's will OpenAI rule it all, or will it be lots of different models? I think having a super smart model is very valuable in getting you customers, associating you with the thing, right? If Daniel at Slingshot can be the best at therapy or one of the best, it'll be easier to build a brand for therapy and get people doing it. And you need to sort of be competitive. But I think the moat more and more is people download ChatGPT, people download your app. You need to have users engaged with it, teach them what am I getting out of it, teach them the rhythm of that. And that matters more. And if you're, using small models and paying ChatGPT, I think to me, the customer relationship matters more than your proprietary model intelligence. And I think that's how things have been developing.
Yeah, so you're saying whatever's in the front of the house matters more than what's in the back of the house.
Yeah, shuffle a bunch of models and all this stuff is still happening where price is somewhat abstracted because they've been able to raise a bunch of money. And once price matters, it's nice to use open source models because they're cheaper.
100%. That is interesting. I feel like I less have a clear point of view on this. In some way, I'm with you that what the harder thing is the adoption. But then I think you have one bad news story, especially in mental health, you have one bad news story about a diagnosis. In the medical world, it's if your model is feeding inaccurate information,
right?
That's really challenging. And that's why so many of these companies, including Hippocratic, including Slingshot, are staying away from prescription and diagnostics. Because that is the scary, scary world, of medicine. I have older parents, and so I have been in the healthcare system as an advocate for my parents for a long time. And my sisters and I know so much about the healthcare system. The doctors will often be or the nurses will say, are you guys medical professionals? I'm sure it's racial profiling also because we're brown. And I'll always say to them, oh no, I'm a malpractice attorney.
Oh my God.
And they literally look like they're going to pee. And
You
I'm
tell
like,
them
I'm
you're
just
joking
kidding.
or- oh,
I tell them I'm just kidding, but I know some. But I'm just kidding.
Oh
But
my
I
God.
I always
We are
get, I
opposites.
always think you get more bees than honey,
would
but it's
never do
so
that in my
funny.
life.
It's so funny to see people's reaction to that because
Oh
the
my
only thing I think doctors hate more than insurers are these like ambulance
Right.
chasing, you know.
All right, let's play our last clip, the spiciest of the day. I think we teased this at the very beginning of the episode. What grade would Vinod Khosla, star investor, give Health Secretary RFK Jr.?
RFK, I don't know if there's a grade low enough. F minus. He obviously cut a deal with Trump during the election, which is a sad state of affairs where our health portfolio and vaccine policy is auctioned off during an election. But they are doing a lot of good things. Dr. Oz has a very sensible view of how to use AI. I think the FDA is very interested. The new head of AI at the FDA.
All right. He had some nice things to say about Dr. Oz, by the way. We didn't keep the clip running, but he was talking about how Dr. Oz had read his, 2012 or 2016 paper or treatise on the future of healthcare and do we need doctors or do we need algorithms kind of take, and that Dr. Oz, now head of Medicare and Medicaid, had responded to him and engaged with him on this. So Vinod had very good things to think about the administration overall, but no love for RFK Jr.
I think that's the consensus view. The only non-consensus thing is whether you're willing to say it or not.
Anyways, this was so fun. I learned a lot. I think that we should definitely do it again. We should go to Austin or we should go to New York next.
Weigh in. Where should we bring Deus Ex Medicina? This was a lot of fun. Plenty more to dig into. And yeah, great to co-host it with you, Nayeema.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it was great to co-host it with you. I'm glad that we made this thing happen.
Great. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys.